Every day and every hour, people around the world engage in a rather bizarre yet popular pastime, an activity one can enjoy at one's own leisure or with a group of friends. This can be the description for many things, but none reach the level of controversy that encompass the drinking of an alcoholic beverage. It is fairly well known that alcohol is one of the most addictive and widespread drugs on the market. But why do people enjoy alcohol so much? While these answers differ from person to person, it can be confidently stated that it mainly involves the way these beverages make one feel, the taste of satisfaction and/or relaxation that comes with every sip. Some people enjoy this rewarding feeling to the point where they can't get enough and are instinctively dependent on it. This is called alcoholism. But why does this happen? How does alcohol manipulate the mind? How can one drink safely and responsibly? The answers to these questions and more shall be addressed shortly, but first, it is important to understand the complexities of addiction and how they apply to alcohol abuse in humans.
Addiction is a complicated issue with a lot of misinformation and social stigma surrounding it. Some people believe that addiction is simply a lack of moral fortitude and willpower, and believe that people should just get over it. This view does not take into account the variety of complex factors that can lead to addiction, or the physiological effect addiction has on the brain. Uppers, downers, and all-arounders describes addiction as an anomaly in 4 areas of the brain's addiction pathway. These anomalies are a survival reinforcement circuit involving an overactive go switch in the brain, also called the primitive brain, which links taking the addictive substance to survival. A damaged or underactive stop switch in the control circuit of the brain. Impaired communication between these two circuitries. The stop switch is unable to communicate with the go switch to turn it off once the addict is satiated. And a damaged, stay-stopped brain that makes recovery extremely difficult for some addicts.
So I'll be going over the main types of alcohol that are consumed in today's world. In front of me, I have 3 categories. I have beer, liquor, and champagne, which is a variation of the sparkling wine. Beer is essentially made from yeast, barley, water, and hops. There are 2 main families of beer, which include ales and lager. Ales are made from a hot fermentation process, and the yeast gathers on top. Lagers are made from a cold fermentation process, and the yeast gathers on top. My first example is a Bud Light, which is a lager. It is American pale, and it is the most generic type of beer that exists. My next 2 examples are ales. I have a Guinness Stout, which is made from roasted barley. My next is a Hops-Executioner, which is an IPA. It is made using a considerable amount of hops, and which gives it its bitter taste as well as high alcohol content. The next category is liquor. Liquor is distilled from fermented juice that's either from vegetables, potato, grains, or fruit. The first example is vodka. Vodka is distilled from either potatoes or grains and has an odorless and tasteless and is colorless. Next is gin. Gin is made almost identical to vodka, however it is made with botanicals and Jupiter berry, which gives it its distinctive gin taste. Next is rum. Rum is distilled and fermented from sugar canes. Next we have whiskey. Whiskey is distilled from grains and then it's aged in a wooden barrel in order to give it its amber look. Finally, for liquor, we have tequila. Tequila is made from the blue agave plant and has to be made in one of the 5 Mexican states that's legally able to make tequila in order to be labeled properly. Finally, we have champagne. Champagne is a variation of sparkling wine. What makes them different is champagne uses grapes specifically from the Champagne region of France. However, and it also undergoes a second fermentation process, which gives it its carbonation and fizz.
One of the most important issues involving alcohol is binge drinking. Binge drinking is consumption of a high amount of alcohol during a short time span. This typically happens when men consume 5 or more drinks and women consume 4 or more drinks in about 2 hours. Drinking like this raises the concentration of alcohol in the blood, as the body organs are unable to clear out that much alcohol in such a short time. Binge drinking is associated with many problems, including alcohol poisoning, suicide, sexual assault, car crashes, and cancer. An MIT freshman student excessively drank beer and rum at a fraternity. 57 hours later, he died in his mother's arms. In Virginia, a 21-year-old senior binge drank liquor and went back to her place. Sometimes during the night, she woke up and fell down the stairs headfirst and died in the next morning. These tragedies could be avoided if only he knew alcohol wasn't the key for social success, if only she knew when to stop.
Alcohol is classified as a downer because it decreases mental and physical activity. Too much alcohol in the body may result in slurred speech, unsteady movement, and the inability to react quickly. It also affects the brain by reducing a person's ability to think rationally and distort his or her judgment. Although alcohol is considered a depressant, the amount of alcohol consumed can ultimately determine the type of effect one may experience. Most people may drink alcohol and consider it as a stimulant to loosen up. But if the person consumes more than the body can handle, then they experience alcohol's depressant effect. Alcohol overdose has serious effects such as the inability to feel pain, toxicity where the body vomits the poison, depression of the central nervous system leading to blackouts and brownouts, respiratory and cardiac failure, or worse, coma or death. How is alcohol metabolized in your body? When you consume alcohol, your body acknowledges it as a poison and begins to eliminate it as soon as it enters. It is broken down in the liver with the use of an enzyme known as alcohol dehydrogenase. This enzyme converts alcohol to acetaldehyde, which is very toxic to the body and especially the liver. The substance is then converted to acetic acid and finally oxidized into carbon dioxide and water.
You've heard about some of the different ways that alcohol can be damaging to your health. So now you may be wondering, how would it be possible to consume alcohol while lowering the associated dangers? How does a person drink responsibly? The answer to that is moderation. People should lower the amount of alcohol they intake. Men 65 years old and younger should refrain from consuming more than 2 drinks per day, and women 65 years old and younger should stick to only 1 drink per day. 1 drink is about 12 ounces of beer or 5 ounces of wine. Remember, although drinking moderately will lower the amount of dangers, they are not entirely gone. Avoid drinking alcohol with medications that could potentially react with the alcohol and cause unwanted effects. Avoid drinking if pregnant, and never drink any amount of alcohol when planning to drive a vehicle. Driving while impaired could cause serious consequences.
Drinking too often leads to abuse, but with a deeper education on alcohol and safe drinking practices, no one has to see a drink in their hand one night and their name on a headline the next morning. The process of addiction to alcohol is physiologically the same. However, the path may be easier to follow due to social pressures. It is in this difference that addiction is often mislabeled as the lack of willpower or a bad habit. This only speaks to social acceptance. In reality, addiction is a disease caused by the rewiring of our primitive brain to develop a survival-like dependence on the substance. Between the social acceptance of drinking and the variety of choices to choose from, it may be easy to start with 1 beer a week and end up drinking 10 shots of vodka on any given Friday night. When you progress past the limits of safe, then the limits of what the body can handle, you move into binge drinking. The standard limit for binge drinking within a 2-hour period are 5 drinks for a man and 4 drinks for a woman. Its depressant effects show when these limits are passed. At best, there's a long-term increased risk for cancer, while the worst cases include alcohol poisoning, brownouts, blackouts, the list goes on. In order to drink safely, consequences can be limited through moderation. This means less than 1 standard drink per day, and avoiding alcohol while taking medications, while pregnant, and while driving.